and welcome. Today, July 22, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is set to deliver his third State of the Nation address. I am Pia Ranada, and you are tuned into Rappler special coverage of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s third State of the Nation address. Joining me in the studio are Rappler Editor-at-Large Marites Vitug, veteran journalist and former Rappler Head of Regions Inday Verona, our resident economist JC Punongbayan, and political analyst Ronald Llamas. Just a few minutes earlier, our reporter Jairo Boleado went live from the red carpet in Batasang Pambansa as lawmakers, government officials, and other guests arrived. The feed was cut as the Batasan started to jam signals for the president's arrival. Joining us later will be Rappler reporters who cover different issues and beats. Okay, so let's start. We all know that the State of the Nation address is always a political statement, but very special ang SONA na to because it is the last SONA that the President will deliver before the 2025 midterm election. So I want to first ask Ronald, no, because the political landscape is something we cannot escape during SONA. And how do you think the President will use the SONA as a platform to project certain political aspirations or targets in the coming years as we face elections? Anong paano niya gagamitin ang speech na to?
Well, una, this is the first SONA na wala na yung unit team. Kaya ipoproject niya na may bagong unit team, may bagong ruling coalition under the ideology of Bagong Pilipinas. Siya yung nagbanggit ng ideology. Hindi ko sigurado, hindi ko pa nakita ko ng ideology nun eh. Ito rin yung first SONA, sabi mo nga, na mangyayari before the midterm. At alam naman natin, yung midterm is a plebiscite on the president, a plebiscite on the government. So they have to show something. Dahil yung first SONA niya is basically addressed sa international audience, rebranding ng Marcos name.
Right.
Kaya yun yung kanyang target, the diplomats, the business community, etc. Nung second SONA niya, medyo kinuha na niya. Dinevelop niya yung framework for governance niya nang wala nun during the campaign. Dahil hindi naman siya sumama sa any debate. At wala rin masyado dun sa first SONA niya. Sinabi lang talaga niya kung anong functions ng government. Dito sa second SONA, merong nilagay na siya na distinctly kanya. Maharlika, agriculture, yung anti-poverty niya. Ayun lang fast forward, parang hindi maganda dahil si Gadon yung nilagay niya as anti-poverty czar. No? So, very, very important ito ngayon. Ito ring past 1 year, between the second and ngayong third SONA, dito rin nag-escalate yung West Philippine Sea issue, yung Chinese aggression. At ngayon rin, nag-scale up yung POGO even as a national security issue. So, nasa consciousness natin itong POGO this past 1 year. At, pero pinakamatindi rito ay yung away nila with the Duterte. Ngayon lang ako nakakita na isang previous president ay tinapon lahat ng klase ng threat sa isang incumbent president. Mutiny, coup, sedition, secession, people power, insurrection, even a hint of assassination. No? Kung titignan mo yung kanilang mga
For the
speeches.
dramatic talaga.
Yes,
Si former
sa kanilang
President.
mga prayer rally na nawala yung prayer. No? Kaya very important itong SONA na ito para mag-assert naman siya ng leadership. Mag-assert siya ng kaunting linaw dun sa mga promises niya nung second SONA. Halimbawa, yung Maharlika, isa yan sa kanyang highlights nung second SONA. Itong kanyang anti-poverty. Pero ayon sa SWS, nag-leapfrog yung self-rated poverty to 58%. Medyo mataas yun, 12% yung increase. No? Kaya kung hindi niya ayusin itong kanyang SONA at magpakita siya ng indication na siya ay isang strong leader, baka magkaroon ng leeway yung bagong oposisyon ng mga Duterte na overtly nais siyang tanggalin. No? Kung makikita natin yung pulburon video na nilabas nila today at yung rally nila last Saturday na medyo nilangaw, no? Sa EDSA Shrine at sa Liwasang Bonifacio, ay talagang they're out to get him. No? So titingnan natin sino magkakamali.
Maybe pwedeng explain mo yung Polvoron video kasi bago lang yan, di ba? Lumabas?
Yes. Last year pa yan eh. Sabi nila Maharlika, sabi nila Vic Rodriguez, at later on sa January 28 rally ni Digong, ay may lalabas daw na Polvoron video na yung presidente ay humihit ng cocaine. Pero dahil last year pa sinasabi yan, hindi naman lumalabas, parang naging urban legend. No? Naging urban legend. At ngayon, medyo nilabas nila kanina, nilaunch nila sa LA, sa Los Angeles, hindi rito hindi sa Davao, sa LA. Inaasahan nila magkakaroon ng may matitrigger, whatever that is, no?
So we're coming into SONA with kind of awkward figures for Marcos because diba, the recent Pulse Asia survey dun sa approval rating sa mga officials shows that he and the House Speaker Martin Romualdez, his cousin, are the least trusted in government. We also know na itong right before this SONA, alam natin na the approval and trust ratings of the Vice President are actually higher than the President. So it'll be interesting to see how he will use this SONA to kind of galvanize or at least show na may political capital pa siya, especially as he's trying to project an image of strength for the election. So, yun yung isang question ko. No? We know that the Vice President is going to be absent from the SONA in person. He or she will be monitoring, I heard from somewhere in Metro Manila. So, how do you think, do you think he will allude to this rift? Do you think the destruction of the unity premise will somehow figure into today's speech?
Yung context naman kasi dyan ay talagang historically, dahil yung presidente ang head of state at saka head of government, talaga namang mas less popular siya sa vice president who is a spare tire. Halos lahat na naging presidente natin, talaga namang mas mataas yung vice president. Malibang kay Leni Robredo na talagang dinemonize ng presidente, no? Kaya hindi siya surprising. Kalawa ay hindi naman depende kung anong survey eh. Dahil halimbawa yung Okta survey last month malaki yung binaba ng Vice President. Dito sa survey ngayon ng Pulse, stable. Hindi naman tumaas, hindi naman bumaba. Statistically the same. So, depende sa mga surveys din eh. No? Pero yung talagang, usually, mas mataas naman talaga yung Vice President sa Presidente na lahat ng blame doon talaga itatapon. Kaya sa akin, hindi pa dramatic yan. Mas ang mahalaga, itong after ng third SONA, ano yung kanyang gagawin? Going into the midterms, which is a plebiscite on the President.
Mm-hmm. Connected to that, no? Kasi syempre approval ratings are always tied to key issues that voters are watching out for, that they feel in their lives. And nakita nga natin na number one talaga, top of mind of Filipinos coming into the SONA is economy issues, right? Economic issues. And inflation is number one. Nakita natin na 3 out of 4 Filipinos are not happy with how Marcos has addressed the economic challenges, has tamed or brought down the prices of key goods in the economy. So let's turn our eyes to the economy. Since ito nga sobrang gut issue niya, a lot of Filipinos are waiting to hear what Marcos will say about how he will improve or how he has been handling economy. JC, can you give us a little situation, or like where are we now? And in terms of economy, what do you expect to hear from the President?
So inflation has actually gone down to within the target range of government, which is 2 to 4%. I think in June, it was 3.7%. Pero just because inflation is going down doesn't mean prices are actually going down. They're still going up, but at a slower pace. And now we're seeing that prices are still really elevated. And I think that's manifested in the trust ratings, in the Pulse Asia surveys. And in fact, tulad nung nabanggit ni Sir Ronald kanina, yung poverty statistics coming from SWS, which is self-rated, nasa highest since 2008, Arroyo administration pa, yung highest self-rated poverty incidence. Na is kind of weird na parang last year kasi mataas na rin yung presyo ng bilihin, and yet it's just manifesting now dun sa ganung record-breaking na poverty incidence na self-rated. So it's quite curious, pero if you look at the sources of inflation, rice talaga yung pinanggagalingan. So kung walang rice inflation, if only rice prices were stable over the past year, siguro nasa 2% lang yung inflation natin, nasa lower end nung target. So that kind of tells you that the Marcos administration could have done a lot more to reduce rice inflation in particular, which actually skyrocketed to more than 20% compared to the average inflation na nasa bandang 3-4%. 20+% yung rice inflation. So parang yung responsibility for that really lies with the President, even when he was still the Agriculture Secretary and until now.
Yes. Pero kuryente rin. Yung kuryente ko halos nagdoble this past few months, di ba? So, imagine mo yung mga karaniwang tao na tinatamaan niya.
Patong-patong. So last Friday, we actually interviewed certain sectoral leaders for like a pre-SONA panel in the Be the Good community show. And I just wanted to flash a certain a segment of the interview we had with Mimi Doringo, who is a member of Kadamay, which we know is an urban poor group. No, they really talk to the urban poor communities and try to understand kung ano ba yung naranasan nila currently under the Marcos administration. So we can show a bit of that interview just to kind of ground us all into the experiences of lalo na the poorest of the poor in the Philippines.
Naalala ko na umupo si Marcos, parang nasa 40 pesos yung binibili namin bigas mismo. Pero ngayon po, nasa 64 na. No? Kaya ang laki talaga ng inabante, yung 20 pesos na per kilo, yun yung itinaas nung bigas simula nang umupo si Marcos Jr. Tapos noon po, yung itlog, makakabili ka ng 20 pesos, 4 na piraso. Ngayon sa community, 11 pesos na ho ang isang itlog. So paano na talaga mapagkakasya? Kahit na sabihin mong may idinagdag na sahod na 35 pesos, ano po yan napakalayo doon sa pangangailangan ng pamilya. Ngayon pa na dahil nga nagtaasan na yung lahat, dahil sa patuloy na pagtaas din ng presyo ng langis, edi tumaas din po yung bayarin sa tubig, sa kuryente, tapos pamasahe, talagang burden na burden para sa mga maralita ho yung mga ganyan. Sinasabayan pa nung patuloy na mga demolisyon at mararahas na mga demolisyon sa komunidad na nagdadagdag ng binabalikat ng mga maralita. Tapos karugtong pa ho niyan, syempre yung kawalan din ng kabuhayan. No? Kasi sabi nga namin, hindi naman po employed ang mga maralita, mga informal workers karamihan sa amin, ambulant vendors. Pero kakaharap siya ng mga clearing operation, yung mga pinangutang nilang puhunan, nababaliwala kasi kukunin ng mga nasa clearing operation. Tapos, kaya paano ho makaka-coop up yung mga maralita doon sa kahirapang dinadanas kung mismo yung gobyerno natin na dapat tumutuwang sa kanya ay hindi nagagawa yung responsibilidad. Bagkos, nagiging pasanin ng tao na magsarili ka, kumilos para mabuhay ka. Pero kahit na gusto mong marangal na mabuhay, ganito naman po yun nangyayari, no? Patuloy yung mga kahirapan. Lalo na po,
yun. So, I think isang striking na sinabi ni Mimi is yung 20 pesos na sinabi ni Marcos, rice per kilo will be 20 pesos under his government. Pero yung 20 pa yung dinagdag dun sa 40 pesos dati. So, medyo parang talagang the concerns of the poorest of the poor is like top line in coming into this zona. So, pero moving forward, no, I just wanted to ask also Marites and Inday, what are you expecting to hear, given na ito yung landscape natin, ito yung situation Marcos is finding himself in, what do you think you will hear from the President today?
Well, napansin ko lang na Marcos has been moving around the Philippines. Binawasan na niya yung foreign trips, pero pumupunta siya sa iba't ibang probinsya at namimigay ng land titles. I don't know kung may cash na kasama doon, pero iba-ibang ayuda. So I think that's his way of shoring up his survey ratings. And kaya siguro ang sasabihin niya mamaya ay kung ano-ano ang nakita niya ano ang mga nagawa niya sa probinsya, ano ang mga napatayo niya. I think magiging mas ganon kasi sinabi niya sa isang interview na I want to show the Filipino people the strides we have taken. So he will focus on those trips to the provinces. Kaya pala sunod-sunod yun, leading up to the SONA, parang to give a report on what he has seen as progress in the countryside.
Reminds me of how Duterte toured the military bases in his first 2 years in as president. How about you, Inday? Ano expectation?
Yeah, I think he'll be harping or at least giving focus on the good news, as the Marcoses have always done, which in his case, I guess, is infrastructure. And never mind that he didn't actually start these projects. It was probably Pinoy and then Duterte, that stuff. I mean, it takes 3 presidents usually to complete a big project. But, there's huge bridges. There's second to the largest dam in Iloilo. There are a lot of infrastructure projects that he visited recently, as well as agrarian reform, giving out of titles. But again, that's nothing new. I think this is more optics for Marcos, and because where it really matters, ang bulsa ng tao, medyo mabigat. Pabigat siya sa tao. Klaro yan, no? So, sa probinsya, mababa rin siya kasi sa Mababa siya sa actually. So, he has need to go to the provinces. And is he giving out funds? Hindi ganyan yata si Marcos kasi even before the election, pinapadaan niya sa wards, sa mga barangay kapitan. Hindi yan,
person.
hindi yan si Duterte na namumudmod. He has always been more discreet, dinadaan sa ibang mga politiko, kapwang politiko niya.
Okay. So, going back to trying to create a strong image of someone tackling economy aggressively, what do you think, lalo na for JC, for anyone here who would have thoughts? Ano yung one way that he could use his SONA to really show that he has a handle on economy? Actually, when we heard from Sony Africa of Ibon Foundation, yung pinakagusto niya daw marinig would be that Marcos would admit to the problems or mistakes in economy and use his SONA to mobilize rather than parang give a list of accomplishments. So, what do you think would be a big statement or hoping to hear from the President's SONA? Like, may mga suggestions sa sana, increase pa niya yung minimum wage, things like that, things that actually really directly address certain economic challenges. So, what do you think would be something that to clear it up, like to really send a message about economy in his SONA?
I think, Mia, we need to hear more from the President about his plans on how to restructure the Philippine economy. We don't talk about it too much, pero I have a sense that too many people are in the service sector compared to, for example, Thailand and Indonesia, na they have a strong, robust manufacturing sector industry, which we don't have. Pero ito yung mga susi sa pagpapalago ng ekonomiya natin. Kasi, for example, if too many people are in agriculture, di ka talaga makakaasa na tataas yung sweldo ng marami sa mga Pilipino, or even in services na low value added yung mga trabaho nila. Pero in manufacturing industry, if enough Filipinos are in those sectors, I think there's a good chance we can really see an increase in incomes in the economy in the long run. Pero for that, we need to ramp up investments and make the business climate a lot more attractive, not just for foreigners, which has been the focus of the President, but also for local investors as well. I think yung paying of taxes, yung business climate, yung regulations, yung permits, all of these red tape, all of these need to be fixed before we can see those tsunami of investments.
Yun nga yung isang tanong, JC, dahil maraming pinagmamalaki yung gobyerno na mga MOU, mga LOI, mga commitments, almost $100 billion doon sa kanyang mga trips. No? At hindi pa natin nakikita yan. At yun nga, yung sinabi mo, tinutumbok ba ng gobyerno yung ating comparative advantage? Dalampasan tayo ng Vietnam because of that. Ang layo ng kanilang comparative advantage sa atin in terms of education, in terms of anti-corruption, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of energy. No? Yan ba natutugunan natin? Or else, walang mangyayari dito sa $100 billion na mga commitment nila. No? At related yan sa politika. Dahil yung kanya bang mga kaalyado, yung kanyang ruling coalition, ay nagpapalala ba o nagpapaganda nitong ating comparative advantage? Dahil most of these are dynasties Most of these are warlords. Most of these are traditional politicians. So, parang chicken and egg yan Ano bang gagawin niya para ma-improve yung ating comparative advantage? Political o purely economic?
Ako kailangan niya magkaroon ng mas dramatic gesture towards the economy. Hindi yung infrastructure, yung mga tao sa baba roll their eyes sa infrastructure. In the first place, only the rich become richer from infrastructure in the short term. Anyway, I think like something like the latest controversy has been returning the excess funds raw ng PhilHealth to the National Treasury, and everybody has been complaining about how truncated the services of PhilHealth are now. That kung senior citizen ka na wala ka ng trabaho, kawawa ka talaga. Hindi parang kahit may zero yung sa hospital, mga hospitals, mabigat pa rin para sa mga working poor yung PhilHealth. And that's a contrast kasi between, so where are you going to use that? Whereas we're waiting for the good stuff that have not yet come our way. So mga ganung gestures. Kasi while restructuring is important for us in the long run, 2025 is next year. He needs to find good soundbites, something that, his propagandists can use to roll that Golden Age Part 2
Right.
ball,
Because
which is
that's
a
always what it
happening.
claims, it's
That's what it
campaign,
says,
diba?
right? Oh.
The golden age. Isa pang buzz phrase we keep hearing about no, is yung upper middle income country targets. Now they keep
by 20.
moving the deadline. Na there, we're going to reach that status on a certain year, and then it gets moved. JC, ano nang status na to? Like, where do you think we are at now, and what is taking so long for them to achieve this target?
Alam mo kung sino yung nag-crossover sa upper middle income country status? Indonesia last year.
Wow.
Nauna natin ng Indonesia. And the problem is, even if the economic managers keep saying that our incomes are increasing, yung threshold kasi to be considered upper middle income is also increasing. So your income needs to increase more than the increase in the threshold. So parang, alam mo, ever since late 80s, nagsimula na si World Bank to classify countries according to income. Lagi na tayo nasa lower middle income country all that time. Never tayong graduate sa upper middle income country. So yun yung and the first economic manager I can remember promising this was Secretary Pernia Ernesto Pernia. In 2017, sabi niya, 2018, we will be an upper middle income country. 2018, pinamis na 2019. 2019, 2020. Parang it's a rolling target eh. So parang, and then most recently, Secretary Balisacan said, early 2026 na. So parang, tinan natin
After
kung
elections na.
after elections na. So
Pero
let's see.
JC, nung first at saka second SONA, isang pinagmamalaki ni BBM, ng gobyerno, ay yung fastest growing growth rate natin, no? In the region, no? Pero itong just a few weeks back, self-rated poverty ay tumalon, 58%. So, yung ganun bang klaseng contradiction, no? Anong nangyari doon sa pinagmamalaki nila na fastest growing economy dito sa region ngayon?
Well, number one, we're growing so fast
Yeah.
because we stumbled so much during the
We're just
pandemic.
catching
Revenge
up.
We had
spending.
the worst recession in
Yeah.
2020. So naturally, parang may catch-up growth na nangyari. Pero if you look at the more recent statistics, anemic ang growth natin. Yung consumption, spending ng mga Pilipino, which used to be the driver of growth, nawala. Investment spending evaporated. Even government spending, the government is actually struggling to spend a lot of its money. So parang now we're going to see a record-breaking budget again for 2025, pero we need to ask ourselves, why is government
Yes.
struggling so much to spend? So doon na yung mga bottlenecks, procurement, spending, etc. So, and then the budget has a huge role to play
So
there.
parang, I'm sorry, can I just,
ahead, yeah.
no, parang may deficit siya ng leadership. Kasi magaling para siyang prince, maybe, magaling siya sa rhetoric, magaling siyang, and he can be parang easy to be with. Kasi if you notice, when visiting heads of state come, when foreign ministers, talagang magaling siyang makipag-usap.
At home, not home.
Oo. Yeah, and the rhetoric is very welcome. I mean, Zelensky came, Pero parang tough issues, parang kulang na siya ng pag-handle. For example, yung energy, di ba from the beginning sinasabi niya, renewable energy, pero konti pa lang investments, I gather, dun sa sector na yun. Tapos he created a partnership with the private sector in this council. Pero,
Yeah.
did he ever talk to us? Ano bang goal nito? Ano ang targets? So, hindi rin malinaw. Siguro, I don't know if he will talk about that today, pero hindi. That's been since 2022.
That private council really sounds like a boys' club. Let's divvy the spoils. I mean, there are no policy thinkers there. They're all Marcos friends, And hindi naman surprising yung rhetoric, and he has his mother's charm, I guess, and partly his father's charm. But if you've noticed, that's why he still is not comfortable with journalists. Because every time outside of the prepared speech, which he can do very well, he really falters. He's not, there's something about him na yung brain niya hindi ganun kabilis na sa give and take. So I'm not too sure. I don't really know nga. I'm imagining what are his cabinet meetings like.
So unfortunately, Ronald will have to cut short his time with us in this panel. And so, Ronald, we wanted to ask you for any last words, maybe especially about the political landscape, and kasi the SONA is not just about the president but also Congress and the Senate.
Well, in relation din sa economy, no?
Okay,
Nandun na
sige.
tayo ngayon ay, halimbawa, yung energy. Ngayon lang ako nakakita ng almost complete regulatory capture ng isang pamilya. Halos lahat ng components, lahat ng institution natin sa energy ay sa Aboitiz nang galing. So, yan ba ay nakakatulong? Effective ba yan sa ating development ng ating energy? So, yun ang una. No? Ikalawa ay dati pang sinasabi na magkakaroon ng cabinet revamp. Nasa na ngayon yan? No? Nasa na ngayon yan? Dahil hindi lang yan usapin ng politics. Dahil usually kasi nagka-cabinet revamp ka para ma-transfer yung blame doon sa mga isinisisi sa'yo. No? At usually, parang shogun yan eh. Dapat yung mga cabinet secretary mo should learn how to fall on their swords, no, for the president. No? Pero hindi nangyayari. Parang tahimik yung cabinet. Hindi naman siya dinidepensahan eh. Unlike the first lady. No?
They're loyal. Ever loyal.
Kaya, going into the midterm, wala pa talaga siyang balak na i-improve yung kanyang team. Dahil, sabi nga natin, marami siyang kakulangan. Pero kahit naman marami kang kakulangan as president, kung makakabuo ka ng magaling na team, i-absorb nun yung mga kakulangan mo. Yun yung hindi ko nakikitang ginagawa niya. No? Na related sa economy, political at the same time, no? Yung interplay nun, parang yun ang kapos na sana magampanan niya dito sa third SONA going into the midterm.
Thank you so much, Ronald, for joining us today. And we know you have to leave, but we will also be talking to you after the SONA itself, so we will welcome you back later.